pew, pew, pow, pow, pow. God dang it, alien, get off my horse. You gosh done it, try to steal my cattle. Gunshots and whirring machines flying overhead, the Wild West was full of strange phenomena and unexplained circumstances. Trains were choo-chooing around, and cars were not far from zooming around. The Wild West was just on the precipice of all of the new inventions. So get out your guns, comb your mustache, shoe your horse, and let's get into wild UFO cases in the mild West.
I didn't see you there.
It all started early this morning.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot, UFOs,
Cryptids, true crime, paranormal, and more.
I've always wanted to see a UFO.
Oh, I was researching for your entertainment.
That's Bigfoot's cat.
He basically wrote the book on Monocle.
We aren't really comedians.
What if Buddha did cocaine?
The Addams Family on meth. This is the Black Cat Report.
See you on the other side.
Good morrow, and welcome to the Black Cat Report in episode 113. I am Joey, one of your hosts, and with me today is the hostess with the mostest. No, literally owns the most hostess cupcakes, Gil.
Pew pew! Hello, everybody. Ding! I hope you all got your chewing tobacco ready. I hope you've had a beautiful day out on the range. I hope you've had a beautiful day with the range in you. And I hope you are holding your Second Amendment tight, because tonight you're going to fucking need it.
Mm-hmm. We're actually not even leaving the Wild West, because we were just in the Wild West the last 2 weeks. So
Shh, they don't know that. Oh, actually, they do. Yes. But this week, it's the Mild West.
This week it is the Mild West. So we are also very sorry for the lateness of our most recent episodes, and want to say it's because we're so busy with our lives and we're struggling to get our episodes recorded. So we apologize. And we want to say we're going to get them out to you eventually. It's worth the wait.
It's true. It's true. And to be honest, preparations for Parapalooza whooped my fucking ass. That is no joke. For anybody out there that does podcasts or does any type of entertainment or media where you have guest interviews, you know it can be just a pain in the ass. There's always, rescheduling that's happening. There's always technical errors. Time zones, holy shit. You want to find out the trouble with time zones, that's a great way to do it. A lot of things like that. And that was the bane of my existence and the pride at the same time. Setting up all the tech and handling all the submissions and getting everything ready. All that said, it was completely fucking worth it. Holy shit. We went for 5.5 hours straight. I think in total, not counting a few technical errors, we had like 8 or 9 guests come on the show, back to back to back, some of them bleeding into one another. It was fucking awesome. And to be honest, we started Beer Booze Boogeyman as a way to kind of connect with the community, and Parapalooza was a way for us to connect our community, right, as like content creators and stuff like that, to the broader community, and kind of have this speed dating type of event where everybody just kind of got to hop in and basically hear from folks from all over the paranormal community, from content creators to researchers to other podcasters, and kind of get like a taste test of everyone. But at the same time, friends, like actual friends, were made that night between all these folks from different communities that would have otherwise probably never met. It was a huge fucking success. Stressful as fuck, but a huge success. And Joey, by the way, didn't just take 1 for the team that night. He took 2 for the team, then 3 for the team, then 4 for the team. He took an entire 5th of whiskey for the team. And there will be a highlights reel coming out all like fairly fucking soon, if it's not out already, of Joey progressively getting more inebriated over the night,
as well as changing costumes too.
It was fantastic. From like a suit to what was it? It was like a Southwest cowboy. I feel like you changed into something else at some point. I don't remember.
Sailor of some sort, I think.
I
don't even remember. I don't honestly remember because it was a wild night.
Yeah, we were worried for you. But Joey, thanks to Joey's incredible efforts and thanks to the generosity of everybody that tuned in, We managed to raise almost $600 over that night. Like, we were averaging over $100 an hour in terms of donations for the Night House investigation, which, by the way, here's the freaking thing. It's going to happen, right? We hit our internal bare minimum to make it happen. It's going to be happening. It's going to be September 28th this year, right? It's going to be this month when this episode's coming out. It's technically not too late to get on the list because if you are a Patreon member, right? So patreon.com/Black Cat Report. Super easy to find us. There'll also be a link in the show notes. If you're a Patreon member, even at the $1 movie night tier, you get access to the live investigation because we're all a part of Beerbo's Boogeyman, and the money's going to support us on the trip anyways. So it's not too late. You actually kind of get to sneak in after, the deadline for the Indiegogo campaign. So if you want to hop in, if you want to see some crazy ass shit and a crazy ass night of events, you still have a chance. So I just wanted to throw that out there and also give a very, very, very special thank you from the bottom of our hearts to all of the folks who have been going out of their way, who have been, donating to us in the campaign, who have already joined our Patreon. And even if they haven't been able to make a financial contribution, we realize it. Like, funds are tight right now. The economy, totally in the shitter, right? It's below the shitter at this point. It is the shit leaking in your basement because your landlord won't fix the pipes, all right? The economy's shit. And if you can't donate, we totally understand. We see all the folks that have been resharing all the stories and all the reels from everything, and we seriously appreciate you. And if you have reshared anything, reposted, sent notifications, anything like that, shoot us a message, preferably on Instagram, because that's where we see shit the quickest. We will add you to the list. Like, honestly, it's the fact that you took time out of your day, that you help promote our content, that's as good as money in our mind. So, hey, hit us up. Be like, hey, I shared this on this date, or just send us a copy of it or whatever. But we will respond back to you as soon as possible and get your email so that we can get you on the list so you can get, you can be in all the fun. So, yeah. That's my long rant about that. But thank you guys. Seriously, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, seriously, we appreciate you guys. Today is going to be a nice little mismatch of stories, and weirdly enough, for my part, it's a UFO Encounters episode, which Gil is super happy about.
I have been pestering Joey since before the show even started to do a UFO episode, and I'm not going to say he avoids it like the plague, because I know how many times he had COVID, but...
I do.
But it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle until I grabbed a book and I was like, Joey, this pretty much has your name written all over it. And Joey, do you want to tell him what the title of the book is that managed to finally coerce you into doing this episode?
The title of the book is Lost UFO Cases of the Old West by Noah Torres and John Lemay, which will also be our source for today's episode. And as Gil so rightly handed me this handbook, as we like to say, we are going to hop into a few of the stories now. It's a bunch of stories in this book, and I've picked out a few that I think will be amazing to share with you guys and, make some jokes about, because some of them are fucking funny. So we're going to enjoy them here.
Hell yeah.
The first story we're going to get into today is called UFO Orders Takeout. On April 15th of 1897 in Haslett, Michigan, near the banks of Lake Lansing, a hotel owned by William H. McGiveron had a run-in with a very hungry alien. William was sleeping in his hotel in one of the rooms and was suddenly woke up by a loud tapping on his bedroom window, kind of like a drive-through. Well, he got up and walked over to the window and opened it. As he opened it up, he was blinded by an insanely bright light, and as he regained his sight, he heard a voice that was just, a bit above the window. There was no railing or way to get on the roof from there, right? So nobody could have been up there in front of his window. This is also 1897. There is no electricity yet to speak of, and for the most part, there isn't much that could light up the room like the light he was describing. As he looked up at the craft, a voice called out to him, "Can you please prepare 48 egg sandwiches and a kettle of coffee? And also throw in a corkscrew," ordering through the window.
And that, my friends, became the first Sonic.
It did, yeah. And honestly, I can't imagine, like, to be fair, it's probably 3, 4 a.m. probably about-ish and during the night. So he's sitting there, you know, it's about when the bars are closed.
Those aliens are drunk.
They're wasted. And they're hungry as
wasted.
shit. And it makes sense because they want 48 eggs and also coffee.
Yeah.
And then they're still also trying to continue to drink because they want the corkscrew for them wine bottles.
Yeah, well, I mean, that tracks. I honestly wonder, okay, if this was in another day and age, if this wasn't,
yesterday.
you know, like,
If this was
yeah,
yesterday.
if this wasn't in the 1890s, right? How many folks out there listening to this who work in the service industry, right, have had nightmares exactly fucking like this? Right? This is a premonition of this dude's grandchildren, like their nightmares.
Yep. William's grandchildren sitting there in a drive-through at freaking cookout at 3 a.m. as wasted people coming. I'd like 48 hamburgers,
God.
please, with sides of quesadillas, you know? It's literally.
Oh my God. I love it.
Well, now William could still not clearly make out what or who was talking to him because the light was so bright.
Yeah.
And there was also like a foggy cloud cover, so he couldn't still make out what was going on. Well, as he was still trying to make out looking out the window and what this was, the ship yelled out again.
Yo!
This time, I guess they were trying to tell William where he could drop off the food when it was finished. It said,
Just leave it on the porch. We won't be home.
"Almost. We are hovering above you in a ship, and we are trying to prepare one of our wings, which was damaged by a bullet from a hunter's gun." Eh?
Oh God, they were Canadian aliens?
Now, I know why you're asking why I'm giving them Canadian accents, right?
Yeah, well, they said A.
Well, I added that in. I just added that in myself.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But
Gotcha.
I added that in because as soon as they placed the order for the food, they lowered the bucket, and they got, they lowered a bucket to him, and in the bucket was several Canadian coins.
Oh my God, they literally Buffalo Billed that shit, or Buffalo Bobbed that shit. It puts the eggs in the bucket.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is great.
And he made them the order, too, and gave them the
Are
order.
you fucking...
So
No.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he put it in the bucket and gave it to them.
How did he have so many eggs ready? How did he fit all those eggs in a bucket?
I mean, I'm sure this is over like 48 hours. Or not 48 hours, but like an hour or two that he fried up the eggs. But eggs are pretty quick to cook, and depending on, if you've already got stuff ready, he probably had to heat up the flat top if he had one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he had to go get a wood fire stove going and shit. You know what I'm saying? Probably had to walk out and like find that many eggs. All right, back in those days, like, you don't have, you know what I'm saying? What did he do? Go up and start shaking his chickens? Be like, come on, they're hungry.
I do imagine he had a store of some eggs because this was a restaurant hotel.
A lot. Oh,
and if it
true.
was a restaurant hotel used to people passing through.
Wow.
And I don't know how other people didn't wake up during this part. Maybe they did.
Yeah.
Maybe like part of it is like he just didn't give that information of what happened about these people waking up. But I would have for sure this time woken up if I saw huge beams of light around my windows.
No, I mean, I would obviously make their order, and this is some Betty Andreessen shit. It's like they require food, they need food, but then it turns out they actually wanted a book or whatever. But this is a Betty Andreessen reaction, like to UFOs. This is incredible, and like I like to think because it is like 3:30, 4 in the morning, right? There probably was a baker, right? That was like strolling
already
in
awake
to this place. They were getting set up, and like they were getting ready to start, I don't know, making whatever the fuck bread or something for the day. And they're just like, hey, what are you doing up so early? And they're like, oh, we got a food order. And they're like, oh, okay. It's like, wow, we got a big order. Yeah, I don't know. I got to take it. And they just never explained that it was via a bright light, UFO, and bucket at the second floor window.
No, definitely not. No, probably just did it and was like, okay. Oh, I got, sure.
I mean, you don't ask questions at your job when like a food order comes in. You're just like, that's weird, whatever, keep going, you know?
Well, funny enough, after he delivered it and they delivered the coins to him, he did ask a question. I think, honestly, one of the things that we would all ask as we sit there and see a big UFO in there.
Yeah.
He got up the nerve to ask, can I come aboard your ship?
Hell yeah, dude.
Finally, right? Yeah, somebody asked
this
it.
Dude.
Mm-hmm.
I like this dude. Okay.
Well, they had a swift reply.
Oh.
And they responded with,
oh, no.
And then they flew away and left him.
Oh, that is rude.
They were wasted. They were like, fuck this guy. He ain't coming up here.
Yeah, that is fucking rude.
It's very rude. He just made them 48 eggs at 3 or 4 in the morning before they were open. 48 egg sandwiches, sorry. So that's about, I would say that's probably 2 eggs per sandwich.
Paid him in the wrong currency.
Paid him in the wrong currency.
Woke him up.
So
many things.
And a pot of coffee, too. A kettle of coffee. So, and he didn't get any reward besides the little bit of Canadian coins. And he's probably just like, the fuck is this? What? Just let me in your ship. That'll be payment enough. But nope. They were gone. And they flew away. And that's the end of that story.
Don't forget to leave a review. There's something too. So I guess to like kind of preemptively, and I haven't read these stories. I don't know, but I imagine some of them might be similar to this. I'm just gonna go out on a limb. We have to look at things in terms of high strangeness, right? So we hear a lot of high strangeness encounters where it's like people asking for really weird fucking things, like, "Can I see your pen?" And they're just like obsessed with somebody's clicky pen, and "Can I please have this?" And they're all weird and shit about it. Those things kind of have like an ooky, spooky vibe to us in a relative sense today. But, you know, I'm sure in like 100 years, 150, 120 years, people will look at high strangeness stories from today and be like, that's just fucking comical. That's just kind of weird because they're so detached from it. Something like this back then had a very high strangeness kind of like vibe and tone. And, you know, and again, like that's the thing about high strangeness. It meets you in a relative sense wherever the fuck you happen to be at. So some of these things, they're comical because they're old timey. But just like, you know, when we hear about serial killers from the 17 and 1800s and it's like kind of like comical, it's because it's old timey. It's not because it wasn't less horrifying at the time. Right.
Well, imagine it's harder to make jokes about people that are still alive and victims that are still alive. You know, we in a way dehumanize the past in some ways.
Yeah.
We have to live with it, because if you thought about the Black Plague and you thought about it and didn't dehumanize it, and you were just like, it killed literally half of the world, you know, at least half of the known world at that time by us white folks. So it's like, if we didn't think of it in a joking kind of way, or like this is just an interesting point of history, I don't think we'd be able to live our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So we just need to sometimes make jokes about it like we do here. We like to do that.
100%. But the actual, like, you know, like I think about like the contracts, right? And like the situation with the first Italian serial killer of like the modern era, and like him getting people to come into a warehouse to look over contracts, and like basically there were contracts, and then just like killing them with like a pipe and shit like that. Like it's kind of comical the way that a lot of those murder situations were set up, but they were like very fucking creepy and spooky, you know, relatively.
People were scared. You know, like he came in, was killing with an axe. He was an axe murderer.
And that's right. That's right.
He had
pineapple.
He just set up these things. Yeah, he set up all these situations that like we'd see it now with known serial killers, you know, from the 80s and 70s, where it's like that's fucking spooky. And researching into like trucker serial killers, same thing. Maybe in like 200 years, that people just be like, what idiots, you know? It's kind of funny, just the idea that's behind what happened. Never takes away the victim's struggle and stuff like that, but just takes away sometimes the sting of it, you know?
And in this case, you know, the victim was that poor inn owner who had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, which back in the day, that was probably 2 hours before his alarm, basically. His alarm was going to go off. He was probably waking up at like fucking 5:30 or 6 anyways. And so he's like, oh, come on.
Well, in our next written account, which is very short but highly entertaining and interesting, this was also in Michigan, this time in Howard City, and about 1 day later that this was observed. So maybe it's could have been the same UFO.
Okay.
And it's actually only an hour and a half drive from the first story, but hour and a half drive in our time.
Where was the first story at?
The first story was in Haslett, Michigan, near Lake Lansing. At 4:30 a.m. on April 16th, in a field near Howard City, a strange flying contraption landed in an empty field. After it landed, a very, 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 very tall humanoid, about 9.5 feet tall,
Damn.
stumbled out and fell over. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't stumble out. He just walked
Okay.
out. That would have been funny if he did. It would have been really funny if he stumbled out and was like, egg sandwiches didn't help.
I can't believe she left me.
Well, as farmers watched from far, far away, because no one wanted to get close to it, being afraid of this giant thing, it started vocalizing with a kind of whimsical, almost singing voice. They described it as a repetition of like bellowing, which to me sounds like he was just a completely wasted humanoid trying to recover. Like, oh, I just want to get up and why is everything so bright? Why is the coffee didn't help? Well, it literally just stayed there throughout the whole next morning and whole day. It didn't really move. And by all accounts, just standing there and bellowing. I really think it was just feasibly hungover and ready for some greasy ass food that it never got.
What was it bellowing?
It was like it was just like
I think of like bellowing as like the description of a sound, you know, like echoing, right? Like that's like the description of a sound, but like what's echoing, you know? So like bellowing is like, I get that it's like a, oh, you know, it's like there's a lot of expression behind it, but like, what was he saying? I want to know.
I'm fucking drunk. And I can honestly say that's probably how...
Eggs! I ate too many eggs!
Oh, my stomach is probably how I felt on Sunday after Parapalooza, to be fair. Oh,
That's
my
how you felt Saturday
stomach.
night, actively during Parapalooza.
Oh, actively, yeah. I was like, ugh.
Oh my God. I love Joey's camera. Joey's camera blacked out at the same time he did. Behind the scenes info for you guys.
Actually, yes, I did. And I was like, I'll be back. And I never came back. And just like this guy, crowds of farmers gathered around watching him, right? So at a moment, somebody got up the nerve to actually get close to the giant. And he was greeted by a huge, swift kick in the ass and thus broke the person's hip.
Wait, so the giant kicked the person that approached him?
And broke his hip.
Whoa.
Yeah, and was like, get the fuck out of here. This is classic signs of a hangover. Because the person getting close to him was like probably talking, and it was closer to him, so it's probably louder, being like, hey, what are you doing? And this thing didn't want to answer any questions. It was like,
yeah,
I feel like shit. I just want to sit here and do nothing. And then anger too took over and bam, kicked him, broke his hip.
I've never heard of somebody getting actively kicked by an alien.
I haven't either. This is an interesting piece of story. What's really sad is this is the last piece of the story. There's no more.
Damn. They don't even talk about like the GoFundMe for the person's medical bills or GoFundMe or whatever they had at the time. And like, it was, damn. So he just got assaulted by an alien. And then they were like, yeah, that's the if for headlines there. You know?
That's classic. Yeah. They're like, this is classic. It was Bill. though. It was Bill, and they were just like, this is classic Bill. Of course, he got kicked in the ass by the alien.
Anybody would get kicked in the ass by an alien.
It was Bill. Yep.
They didn't even talk about how he developed like butt cancer, not colon cancer, but actual physical, like his butt cheek cancer.
His butt cheek got cancer.
Butt cheek cancer. Damn.
No, I didn't talk about it. It was really sad, you know, Bill.
Michigan.
What are you gonna do?
This is just some Lansing shit, honestly. I grew up right near Lansing. This sounds like some shit from Lansing.
Yeah, and what sucks is we never heard anything. Didn't say how he left. Didn't say when the giant humanoid left, or if any other reactions or interactions with the people. What I think is after the guy got kicked, they were all just like, nah, nothing else to see here. He's just gonna lay here and do nothing. He's not gonna do any tricks, or we don't know what's gonna happen. So they just left. They got bored.
Yeah.
As that was the end of that story, we're gonna switch up to another quick story. This might be a little longer, but
okay. Many
of the stories in the book go through what they call airship sightings, and I I akin this to like me calling stuff handbooks, right? So this is kind of the thing. They're just like, it's an airship, because most of the time they were thinking, oh, there's water ships, right? So it's like just a ship on the sea is something. So they have to convey that it's an airship and not a sea ship, which they wouldn't say sea ship. They'd just call it a ship.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to know, right? In the Old West, they're called airships. I want to start calling cars land ships.
Backtrack a little bit on the epistemology behind it. Or is that the right word? Epistemology? Is the right word? Too many ologies out there, if you ask me. But yeah, so airships. Essentially, what we have here is we have the Mount Rainier sighting, which essentially, and this was in early '47, which coined the phrase "flying saucers." Specifically, when he said to the reporters, it was. Oh my God, it starts with a K. I can't fucking remember. I have too many UFO events. Are you looking it up, Joey?
No.
Oh. What we had, right, when you had, like, basically from the settling of, the European settling of America, right, up until July, or actually Kenneth Arnold, right, so it'd be January, February 1947, I think it was beginning of 1947, you had Kenneth Arnold, who was flying, all the shit like that, saw what's now called UAP, UFOs, and there was a whole string of them, and they were basically moving really fucking weird, and he looked out his window, and when he described them to the reporter after he landed, he said they were skipping along like saucers, like flying saucers, right? He wasn't describing the actual shape or anything. He was just talking about how they moved across the sky and how weird they were. Imagine taking a dinner plate, and skipping it across a river, like how it'd be bouncing up and down, right? And a whole line of those, but they're in the sky. That's all he was trying to say. Reporter took that, called it flying saucers. That became the term for it for most of the modern, century, like afterwards, right? Up until the UAPs kind of picked up after 2017. Well, before that incident where a reporter's like, I like that term, and they like put it in papers and it became a whole fucking thing. Before that, they were called airships, right? Specifically during World War II and shit, they were Foo Fighters, but that was kind of and that was literally based off of, they looked like fighter planes, and they said in a meeting, like, what the fuck was that? And they called them fuck fighters, right? Like, that was what they called them. But in official documents, they called them Foo Fighters, because that's a little more, you can present a term like that, right? Officially, you can call them Foo Fighters as opposed to fucking fighter jets, right? But yeah, so airships was the nomenclature at the time, which is why they're so weird. But it also described anything that was up in the air. That was my long historical UFO rant, but that is the terminology at the time that everybody used.
I wonder if Kenneth actually knew how many people would take his flying saucers to heart, and how if he took responsibility for how many people's plates he broke. As they were trying to throw and skip their plates across the river to see how many times they could skip it. Did he ever take responsibility for that?
This is another reason why I'm glad I live in the 21st century, and accountability is a stronger term these days, honestly.
Well, in Lake Charles, Louisiana, on April 19th, 1897, a man who was not named but called a person of unquestioned veracity gave his story to a local newspaper. The UV person, unquestioned veracity, first spotted the ship flying in the sky about a half-mile away and heading in his direction. As the craft got closer to him and started hovering down on him, his horses got spooked and threw him off and ran away. So he's just sitting there by himself, horses gone. As he was getting up, the airship descended right near him and then landed about 100-ish feet away from where he was.
Damn.
The ship was 75 feet long and about 25 feet wide, and had an aluminum like outside, or if you're in England, aluminium outside. Well, after the ship landed, two beings climbed down a ladder from the ship. They apologized continuously to him for scaring his horses, which threw him on the ground, and asked him if he would like to go into the ship and see it. Unlike our first story, where they're like,
Oh
get the
my
fuck out of here. You can't get on here.
God.
They're like, no,
These-
come on.
These are Canadian aliens. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They just thought that all humans looked the same, so they assumed it's the same guy that they pestered a few years earlier that was drunk there. I'm so sorry. If you really, we can make it up to you this time. You know, last time I know you asked if you could get on the ship, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking, because he has the veracity. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, I know. You want to forget about it. That's okay. We'll give you a few loons for your troubles here. We'll give you a few loons. You go on, you get on the ship. We'll go find eggs somewhere else. I know how much you like them.
Pretty much. Yeah, actually.
What?
They thought it was the same person. No, well, honestly, this time, well, you know, most people would say yes to this, and he did, because he was like,
100%.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the beings introduced the entire crew of other
my
beings
God.
that were on this ship, right? It was very
God,
weird
this
the
is
way that this
awesome.
kind of went through. It kind of reminds me of like Betty and Andreessen, where they're just like,
Yeah.
here's everybody that we have on the ship. You know, there's Danny, there's Deborbalorg,
Danny
there's,
2. There's
Danny
3.
2.
We have a lot of clones here.
Yeah, it's pretty much all clones. Well,
Yeah.
The first person they introduced was Mr. Wilson, which is kind of funny, who was the owner of the craft.
No. Mr. Wilson was just behind a control panel. You could only see from the top of his nose up, and he's like, hey, how you doing today? If you ever need life advice, I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. The next door neighbor, you never saw him. Well, that was the owner of the craft. Mr. Scott Warren, who was a friend of Wilson's, Mr. Wilson. So it's funny that they had all these names.
They've got last
They had
names,
human
too.
names.
Yeah.
Mr. Waters, who was the engineer.
Okay.
And a cook from Mexico, which did not have a name. And I find that very racist, that they're like, it's just the cook
What?
from Mexico. Yeah.
What? Oh
In
my
the craft.
God. This is just more proof that, you know, like if you go to a great Indian restaurant, 8 times out of 10, shit ton of Mexican folks making the food back. Go to a great Chinese restaurant, 8 times out of 10, shit ton of Mexican folks. You go to Italy, look in the back of the kitchen, shit ton of Mexican folks. Mexican folks can literally make, but you know what happened? The aliens went to Egypt, were like, hey, this is how you make a pyramid. All right, we got to hit up some other continents over there, yeah? And then they went over to South America, Central America, right? And they were like, all right, we're going to teach you how to, oh my God, you already did it. Wow, that was actually a good idea. I didn't think about putting the steps on the side. Damn, you guys are, holy shit, y'all are good at this. No, please, we honestly, is it cool if we just hang out and chill and watch? This is fucking dope. Like, this is just proof. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the owner, Mr. Wilson, told him the airship was kept afloat not by electricity, but by compression and expansion of gas.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson said that they could travel about up to 125 miles per hour.
Oh.
Mr. Wilson then said they had been conducting experiments on the right altitude to fly. So basically, they're trying to find out how far up or down in the air their airship should go. And the purpose of the experiment was to create an airship that would fly between New York and San Francisco.
This actually sounds like actual humans trying to figure out how to fly some shit.
Exactly. And so, as I was saying, as I know what you're thinking, this doesn't sound like a Zeppelin from Germany.
Nope.
And it most likely was, actually.
This is our Führer, Mr. Wilson. Hail helium!
As we know, things that technically aren't really mainstream, like drones, were created long before we start to see them in the air or on the shelves. Well, the first Zeppelin, which I said in quotes, was created by a German man named Ferdinand Graf von Zeppelin, a retired German army officer. It made its first initial flight on July 2nd, 1900, so this is about 13 years too early. So I would still say, though, it is very possible the United States was already trying to build something of this caliber as well. Not to mention that the actual first steam-powered hydrogen balloon airship with steering was flown in 1852, about 20-ish years before this actual thing. So I think there could have been numerous types of airships flying around at that time testing. So I like to look into this is this airship probably more was like somebody trying to figure out new ways before time, before they were
beta
there,
balloon.
you know.
A beta balloon.
A beta balloon. And, you know, here we like to try to figure out if there's a hint of proof in some of these things. So we're just trying to give you all the facts, even in some of these little short stories that we found.
Well, yeah. And I mean, so that's the thing, too, is how many UFO sightings and yada yadas are, at the origin behind them, if we could find the truth of the truth of the truth of the truth. Humans.
Yeah.
We had the CIA, the Blackbird testing throughout I believe it was the late 70s, early 80s. Super fucking confidential, super fucking toppity top secret. And when UFO sightings, because the CIA, the government just as a whole kept very close tabs on UFO watch groups, right? Because it wasn't just to see if their secret experiments were being registered by people that were in the UFO community. It was also to see if, say, for instance, the Reds, right, the Soviets were testing shit in the area, right?
Yep.
And because they could look at the descriptions and know about their top secret understanding of Soviet technology and be like, oh shit. So we didn't know what happened between this point and that point when we saw it, but there was something described 5 minutes later that was showing up over here. Boom, that's our leading theory on what was happening. So those things were watched. Now, I want to point something out that was completely, it's often overlooked. It's a very strange little point of Civil War history, right? Scouts during the major planned battles, right, that would take place in the days before and shit like that, kind of in the days before, hours before, leading up to a major event, they had balloon scouts, both sides had balloon scouts that would be tied to the ground, right? And they had a small, basically a hot air balloon. And it would be lifted up, right? And they would have a whole fucking, it's almost like ships, at sea for a long time, had these very complicated flag signals, which could communicate to one another, right? When visual communication was the only option because they couldn't hear you, they had scouts that were in early hot air balloons watching battles, seeing troop movements, and communicating down to the ground. So, this technology was, already about to fucking happen. I am 100% sure that for the folks, the probably 8-year-old that was thrown up in that bitch that was getting shot at all day, let's be honest, they're like, you're small, you're light, you'll be perfect, and threw him up there. I don't wanna, perfect. You got that spunk, kid. But so
that's what we need to win the war.
He just keeps saying he wants to leave. I think he's saying they went left. Wait, which left? Oh shit.
Go higher.
Go higher, you say? Perfect. But I'm sure while they were up there, some folks attached onto it, and they were like, "Fuck! If we could direct these things and not just be at the whim of the wind, that would be perfect." And thing is, especially at this fucking time in history for inventors and shit, the margin for error, if their planned ships mess up, is straight up catastrophic death. That's it.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah. There's
it's
no
whoever
saving.
the fuck
There's
succeeded.
No
Yeah, no, basically whoever the fuck succeeded is the one that showed up in the newspaper as inventor of, because everybody else that was testing in silence and kind of secretly on the side and doing their own shit, they just fucking died, dude.
Yeah, literally.
Mr. Wilson's dead.
Yeah, probably. And that's why no stories came up because of Mr. Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to corroborate the evidence there if that was actually a thing.
This is same with the bucket situation.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that, First in Flight, totally American, right? Because, oh my God, can you think about how the world would have went if it was Canadian? I'm glad I'm in this timeline. Anyways.
Yeah, me too. We did a good job being born in this timeline. Well, that was the end of that story. There's no other things happen about it.
Just had a nice little walkabout.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of these are from newspaper articles, things like that. So it's kind of hard to gather much more evidence because this was the evidence of this.
Yeah.
Newspaper articles that they're finding, Sometimes witness statements from people on the other side of it is very similar to what happens. So it's kind of like we're not getting the firsthand video like nowadays. Oh, I just looked on TikTok and I saw a UFO. You know, like it's not like that. It's just from all this is from secondhand opinion or from firsthand, but from a newspaper. So third party viewership on it. Well,
Gotcha.
in our next story, we'll get into another airship, and this one sounds like it has a lot more of a UFO high strangeness case than just like I saw an airship and they took me up into it. And
Gotcha.
You'll see. This is also in April of 1897 in Harrisburg, Arkansas. The state senator Benjamin Harris Jr., which Harrisburg, Benjamin Harris Jr., think the town was probably named after his family.
Yeah, just a little bit.
He was awakened from sleep by strange sounds. He went outside and noticed a massive airship landing on his property. When it landed, 4 people stepped out. 2 young men, a woman, and an elderly man who said he invented the airship. And see, this is like, okay, it's starting like the last one, you know, they're talking to him. There's actually people on this. But if we think about it, and this is kind of how I like to think of a lot of stuff, I always think of it as that maybe these people, you know, UFOs that we see could be us from the future. I like to say that kind of stuff. That's kind of my theory behind a lot of it, but we'll look into this one. The older man had a heavy set of dark silken whiskers which hung down near his waist, with jet black eyes and a deep, firm expression. They started grabbing well water from a nearby well, and Harris walked up to the elderly man, and the elderly man regaled him with the story of the airship and what it was. So basically the guy walks up and he's like, oh, you look like you need answers, and just starts telling him everything about the airship because he's an elderly man and he just wants to tell everything about it, you know? Because it's
apparently that's a universal impulse for like men that get to be past 50 years old to just love telling you every detail about their fucking car or their vehicle. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter where they're from.
Exactly. Well, apparently the elderly man's uncle created an anti-gravity propulsion system and was offered big sums of money by many countries.
The senator guy there is just like, what's gravity?
Propulsion? Gravity? I have no idea what this is. Yeah.
Sounds like another platform I need for the next season of elections. We are anti-gravity.
Yeah, so he took it in and was like, what?
I was just going to tell you that well water's for cows. It's full of sulfur. You should actually be using that well, but if I'm down to listen if you want to keep talking.
Yeah, you might be dead in a few minutes. That's fine. But oh well, just keep talking. Well, the elderly man was like, look, all these people are trying to buy my uncle's anti-gravity propulsion system.
Obviously.
Including countries that included Paris, London, and many other places. So those would be the cities, you know, that the countries are in, which bad writing by the author of the article, I think, is what they
Every country wants this. Detroit, Toledo, Cincinnati, all the major world governments.
Well, sadly, while he was thinking it over, the uncle became violently ill and died suddenly. He never got to sell. Yeah, the elderly man, his uncle died while he was trying to be like, hey, I want to sell, maybe I sell this, maybe not. And so the elderly man started experimenting on his own with the airship design and said that he would travel at night not to be detected by anybody that's trying to buy this thing from him and buy it. In the book, the elderly man said that the original, he had to search a long time to find the actual original airship because he couldn't figure out how to make it, and he like knew his uncle had the design, but he couldn't figure out how to make it. So he had to actually track down the original airship to design something like that.
Gotcha.
And he designed it, but he didn't know exactly how to do it, so he's just like testing all this stuff.
Maybe we fill it with lead.
That'll do it. Helium? The anti-gravitational device is just a single small wire placed around anything. And it works. That's literally how he described it.
Okay.
It's just a single small wire that if you placed it around, like I would say if you want to think about it, think of it like a noose. You place, and anything in that noose is inside the noose is going to float. It's not going to be able to like touch the sides of the noose because it's gravitational, right? So it's just keeping it inside there. It's floating inside the noose, and then outside the noose, it's also floating. So it's like nothing's touching whatever is floating, and that becomes the anti-gravitational device, which is very
interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like almost like the is it 1940s, 50s, 60s, like the depictions of like everybody in the future. They all had like hovering rings on them for everything.
Yep.
It's almost like a spin-off of that. It's like a leash, but the leash actually keeps you away from gravity. This is interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's a fun wormhole to go down, you know.
So I imagine it was probably using electronic waves or electric waves or something like that to keep it. Not really sure though. I'm not a scientist.
It's a playground for thought for sure.
It is.
Like it's definitely a playground for thought.
Well, on the front of the airship, they had placed a 4 tons improved gun.
They had a 4-ton gun.
They had a 4-ton gun on the front of the airship.
A 42G. God damn.
Yes. Yeah. Fucking
40G.
Mm-hmm. Well, funny enough, he said it could shoot 63,000 bullets a minute.
How the fuck are you going to load something that fast? Again, see, this actually tracks. It had to have been 22s.
Exactly. To be that fast.
Tracks.
Well, I just want to like give a little like process behind it and to make it more unbelievable, right?
Okay.
So in the late 1800s, the fastest they could fire was 450 rounds per minute, right? 450
pretty fast
rounds.
It's pretty
per minute,
good. Yeah.
Not 63,000 bullets per minute. See, like, take that.
And those guns were literally water cooled. Like quite literally water cooled. And they had more jam, honestly, than your grandma.
Wow. Cricket applause.
Yeah, more jams than your grandma.
To give you more behind it,
okay.
In the 1960s, with the M134 minigun, they could only fire 6,000 bullets per minute. So getting there, but still way too low. Well, at this point, they offered to take Harris for a ride. And
like these amicable
unlike
aliens.
Everybody else,
oh no,
he said no.
Fucking lame,
he declined.
Dude. Lame. That is fucking lame, dude. Come on. Fuck off, dude. Like, you're a bit. I'm sorry. Harris was a bitch.
He was a state senator. He was a bitch. So
he's a total little bitch.
Yeah.
I don't like
well,
him.
they just got back
like
on
him.
board and flew back away. They were just like, good luck. They were just like, well, fucking fine. We offered to take you on this cool ass ride and maybe shoot some people,
dude.
Yeah.
Hell no. I don't even care if I got pants on. I'm getting on that shit. We're going. Probe me for the ticket. I'm there.
Well, it's funny, adding to this, before they left, the elderly man said that they were getting ready to head down to Cuba to kill off the Spanish army if hostilities had not ceased.
I like these dudes. I like these dudes a lot.
But they said now the plans are changed, and we're going to the aid of the Armenians.
Okay.
Which, if we want to get into a little history behind
this, please do. Go for it.
At this time in 1897, the Spanish army was fighting against revolutionaries in Cuba seeking independence. And so they were going down to kill the fucking Spanish army with their freaking 63,000 bullets per minute, you know, to go.
Are you trying to tell me that there is an even earlier history of advanced U.S. military technology interfering with Latin American relations?
Yep.
It goes back even farther.
Yes.
Dear God. They're like, we're going to have to kill Castro's great-great-great-great-grandmother.
Exactly. Well,
what?
What's funny is a year later in 1898, the U.S. actually declared war against Spain and then kicked them out of Cuba.
Hell yeah.
Which is just like, they were just getting ready to do that. They're like, we're going to do it a year early. So if we want to think about this, they maybe might be time travelers.
It's time time travel time, baby.
Hell yeah. Woo! In 1897, the Ottoman Empire was massacring the Armenian people, which is what they just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The Ottoman Empire killed between 100,000 to 300,000 in between 1894 and 1897 Armenian people who were just fighting to get their freedom.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe they knew what was going to happen. But because freaking Harris didn't get on board with them, they were just like, well, fuck these people, and just went back to their time. They didn't stop the Armenian massacre. They were just still killed.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of early inventors around shit so war has always been profitable.
Yep.
Like war has always been insanely profitable. Frankly, it's always been the number one way to move whatever the fuck currency or profits are between one place and another. That's how it's always been.
Yep.
A lot of early inventors, if they saw some sort of military application, were not, blind to the fact that if they could get a military to be excited about it, right, then they would make, buku money on shit. And a lot of the early ways of testing anything that could be used for weaponry or to give a military an advantage was to find whatever the fuck war was going on and to take on whatever side probably would have the most money or be able to benefit them the most or make the biggest splash in the news, right? That's another way, is to pick the underdog, have the underdog whoop their ass with your fantastic weapon.
Yep.
Right? And then every government on the planet wants to buy your shit. So this could be an early inventor of something that really was super fucking awesome, probably bragged up, but super fucking awesome. And to go pick the underdog and have every world government be like, holy fuck, what did these people who were fighting the Spanish Empire, right, had no chance in hell, what did these people use to win? And it's like, step right up, and fly on out. We've just created, and it's like, and it's this thing, So, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I want to say the guy who invented the, what do you call it? It's like the rotary machine gun, right? Because back in the day when you actually had the old school machine guns, I can't remember the term. Gun nerds, hit me up about this. I know there's a specific term.
Minigun?
I think it was the minigun, but yeah, you had to hand crank that bitch, right? And it kind of had to be timed with how fast the barrels would cool, and literally the barrel would spin because you couldn't just keep shooting out of the same barrel. Metallurgy wasn't advanced enough. But yeah, I mean, he took that shit, went to whatever the fuck military would take him and was like, come on, try it out in battle. And they're like, Dad, we're kind of busy right now. And he's like, no, go ahead. And then somebody finally tried it and they're like, oh my God, we need 12. So like it was around that same time. Well,
all these advancements were happening in military and guns. So it was like, yeah, at that time especially, because people were just like, how can we kill each other faster? Right before World War I started, they were kind of like, let's make everything easier to kill people with.
This is also when we lost the inventor of the ketchup gas in a horrible mustard gas accident.
Well, the last story we're going to talk about today is one of the most interesting. Early on in the podcast that we do, around episode 9 or 10, we did an episode about the women in black. If Gil remembers this.
Yes.
So, as you probably also know, there is Men in Black, probably from the amazing movie series with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in it, or you just actually study the phenomena. The funny thing is, and I think maybe we talked about it in that episode, but the Men in Black, people have talked about, is a spoof to discredit the actual idea of the Men in Black, because I think sometimes the Men in Black are created as like almost like a demonic-ish kind of figure in some stories, that they're very unearthly, I think is the idea. Not that they're humans, that they're just like unearthly and they don't know how to react and act in a human's body. And it's not necessarily demonic, but if you want to think of it, that they just don't know how to act in a body, in a human way, is how I see it.
There's so that's like one of the long-standing historical kind of like signs, right? If you're going to go back to the Spark Notes, to the is your toe broken? Does it hurt when you move it to the right? Yep, it's broken. Like the simplest of the simplest kind of descriptions. The Men in Black are almost never, right, considered to actually be humans.
Yep.
Right. A lot of times, like if you go back to like Albert Bender and like why, and he was one of the first people who really pushed UFOs and saucers and started the early newsletter groups and everything like that. And the reason why he dipped out of doing that is because he was visited by, quote unquote, the Men in Black. And he wrote about it and basically warned everybody, hey, I just had some people appear. Well, when those people appeared in his little loft in the house that I think he shared with like his stepdad or his dad or something like that.
It was a stepdad, yeah. Really weird.
Yeah. But there was a distinct smell of sulfur. Right. So since the very beginning of like modern ufological kind of like ties to the Men in Black, that demon kind of like or evil or Satanistic, and that Satanistic in the fundamentalist Christian sense of like that evil spooky dark side, right? Not Satanists, y'all are cool, but in the pop culture reference, right? It's always been tied to a demonic force. And so there's the smell of sulfur, there's the really weird behavior, there's this like terminology around it. And it looks like a lot of times when you see them, again, they don't know how to interact with reality. Like they're just like it's like you took a newborn baby, put it inside of an adult's skin. That's a weird visual. And then and gave it just enough like kind of
awareness,
I guess, thought processes, right? Just enough processors in there that it can actually communicate and carry out some sort of like mission. It's always just like, and on Tuesday, you should stop right now. Can I see your pen? And it's like very like weird. A lot of times they don't have lips, and there's
it's
almost
very weird.
But on the demonic side, there's almost always a distinct smell of sulfur that goes with it, which is tied to all the evil shit in history.
Yep.
But yeah.
Well, this story might actually have the Men in Black in it, so which is kind of interesting to add to this.
Give it some.
In Dubuque, Iowa, which just had an airship recently fly over in October of 1879, made all the papers. It had a visit from maybe fairies, maybe Men in Black. We don't need just a bunch of different things. Well, a year after the airship flew by in 1880, a girl who basically got sick and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with her. Honestly, she probably just had the common cold. They're just like, I don't know what's wrong with her.
It appears as though she's down with the sickness.
Disturbed came early. Well, because doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, they did what any family would do back in the day. They called a priest.
We gave her a lobotomy. We gave her more work to do. We told her to shut the fuck up. Nothing works.
No. And then they decided, we should probably call a priest. They wanted to see if the priest could do something. Well,
and after an 1.5 hour long visit, he finally left their small boy's room and attended to her.
Well, to be fair, Father Bernard of New Malloray Monastery was also known as a great healer of unhealable persons. He got called in.
Okay.
Father Bernard prayed over top of the little girl for a while. Actually prayed, not did the other kind of praying that the priests are known for.
Not like when he prayed over the boy.
No. And as soon after he finished praying, he said, "Bingo, I've got it. On your way home from this, give her this certain medicine and she will be cured." So some kind of clover, something. Yeah, some kind of like, herb or something that he had figured out. And I want to say that probably some of the priests back in the day, some of them knew a shit ton about small herbs, probably have done a lot of work on them. And same as scientists, because some of them have figured out, like, using their priest knowledge of, like, I can cure her. And they're like, oh, he's a godly man to figure this out. And it's like, no, he just kind of probably did a bunch of...
No, he interrogated 4,000 witches and burned them at the stake. And what do you need this for? And it's like, well, it helps with this. Not anymore, bitch. We're going to tell people we invented this. You know,
Exactly.
Like 90% of these single women living out in the woods with all their fucking awesome-ass black cats were just actually healers in the community, and the church got a little bit threatened by them because people stopped going to them for prayer and started going to them for actual fucking cures to shit. So the church had a lot of info.
They appropriated a lot of info, literally.
Yeah, they inappropriately appropriated a lot of info.
Well, so after the priest told him this, the father, who was named Andy Crow, and his daughter went and they got it, right?
Hell yeah.
The daughter's name is not mentioned in the story, so we're just going to call her daughter, just like
Okay.
Eddie Vedder said. On their way home, the daughter looked at the father and said, "All that was done for me by Father Bernard won't help me.
Oh.
I'm going away in a year's time to live with fairies," which is like, I
Okay.
mean, it's a kid, so with fairies, they're kind of like, he's probably just, thinking about all the
Okay.
stories about it in the woods, and sounds like a kid's way of saying she's probably going to die. That's kind of how I see it, of like a nice way to,
Yeah.
a nice never-ending story kind of metaphor that she's like, I think I'm going to die.
Kind of somebody where, she was there with a family or friend or whatever, and she was like, I'm worried I'm going to die. And I'd be like, well, if you die, it's okay, because then you get to live in a land full of fairies and everything gets to be
Exactly,
fun
yeah.
and played. And she's kind of regurgitating that as like a way of saying that, like, I know I'm going to die, but it's okay, Dad,
Yeah, trying to
makes
help the
sense.
father, and, well,
Yeah.
the father waited and waited, and on the exact day, a year from when the daughter made the proclamation, she disappeared without a trace. There was a candle left burning in the room,
Oh,
and all her clothes were left behind except for one calico dress.
that's trippy.
I know what you might be thinking, right?
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Andy the dad probably just killed her. Is that what you were thinking?
Not literally. That was the farthest thing from what I was thinking. I was like, why would he wait a year? He could have just changed the date. She only said it to him. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, to me, I could see it as like he's just telling the story afterwards because it has all the kind of makings of the story. And
Totally.
that's what all the neighbors were thinking as well. So they're just like, I'm pretty
okay.
sure this guy killed him. They were very suspicious. And they started inquiring with the local law enforcement to look into it and see if there was any foul play involved. But in all the surrounding areas, there was no body found. So they were like, okay, we're digging here, we're digging there, we're going to use the dogs to figure out if there's a body around. No body. Nothing happened. So some time passed, right? A year later, she showed back up at home. Just randomly showed.
Whoa.
Right back at home. She was unharmed, and there was
Whoa.
nothing wrong with her.
Whoa. This is some like David Pallades missing 411 shit here.
Exactly, yeah. When her father asked, "Where have you been?"
Yeah.
she started on this fantastical story about fairies that had come to her and
Whoa.
taken her away, but not by force in any way. She just
Nah.
went with them.
Yeah.
She mentioned that these fairies had futuristic technology. They traveled around in cars invisible to mortal eyes.
Oh, shit.
The only reason that she was actually returned was because the fairies had heard the rumblings in the town, blaming the father for her disappearance, and didn't
Whoa.
want to get her father Andy in trouble. Basically to
Whoa.
clear the air and say, this was not him. This is our fault, the fairies. You know us, the fairies. Come on, eh?
Everybody knows
You know,
this.
like, yeah, right? Like, that's the whole thing behind it. So weird that she just randomly
Whoa.
returns one day.
This is some Travis Walton Fire in the Sky kind of shit, because it's like all the fucking loggers that were leaving, they saw the UFO. Travis just got the fuck out and was like, you get over here, UFO, and like ran up to him, got hit with the beam. They were all like, oh, fuck, there was somebody behind us when we were backing up, and like basically took his ass in. Whole fucking process. God damn. We are going to cover that someday. And this is a tip off. We're going to cover Travis Walton, but I'm going to be restoring a lot of his earliest audio tapes. I've been collecting them slowly for the past year and a half. But anyways, Travis Walton getting abducted by the, everybody came back into town, told the sheriffs, holy fucking shitballs, this dude just got fucking abducted. And they were like, yeah, sure, buddy. I don't know why they were in Arizona and sounded Canadian, but that might be a clue.
Everybody
they were like,
sounds
yeah,
Canadian
sure,
today.
buddy. Okay, we're just going to have to give you some question in here. And then it was like the week or whatever of like all of the friends were being accused of killing Travis Walton and like hiding his body until Travis showing up fucking naked as goddamn hell, like in a phone booth, was like, please, can somebody come get me right now? Like a week and a half later, and was like, no, I really was fucking abducted. Right. But there was like a criminal investigation that was like underway by the time that he popped back up. This is kind of like a version of that, dude.
Yeah, just an earlier version, way earlier.
Damn.
Well, as she came back, everyone in the town was elated. And that she had seemingly returned out of thin air to her family and friends.
Shit, dude. Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be? Like, this
Yeah.
girl who's been missing, their friends are just like, where the fuck did she go? It's like nobody knows what happened to her. Nobody knows. It's just like, okay, cool, great. She's back.
Yeah.
She's like amazingly back. Well, they held this huge feast. And
Hell
she
yeah.
told all of
That's
them
what's
what had
up.
happened without any hesitation. She's just like,
Which-
yeah, really, yeah. And they're like, well, we're kind of just glad to have you back. And, we all
Anyways.
thought your dad murdered you. So glad that wasn't true.
There's just somebody in the back slowly taking a rope down from a tree. And they're like, someday I'll get to try my anti-gravity technology.
2 days later, she went to downtown Dubuque to visit her sister.
Mm.
While she was there, so it was 3 days after she announced the ferries were returning to pick her up again. So she's in Dubuque and she's telling her sister, like, in 3 days, the ferries are going to come pick me up.
Yeah.
She said specifically 2 ferries had come for her. 2.
Okay.
Well, the young daughter's sister, who she was visiting, went upstairs to check on the daughter one night and found these 2 odd-looking beings resembling men
Oh, hell no.
dressed in antiquated black suits.
What?
And with her, they just walked out of the front door.
Whoa.
All 3 of them just walked down the street and then seemingly at the end of the street evaporated into thin air.
Whoa.
And nobody saw them ever again.
Dude. Oh, that is trippy. Holy
Ugh.
shit. Damn.
And that is the last story for today and our episode for today. We're going to be getting into some more UFO cases eventually. Now,
Hell yeah,
Gil's
we are.
going to be getting into some more UFO cases eventually. But for today, that's it. I just wanted to give you guys the chills at the end of it.
Dude, you did it. You're bringing us into spooky season. You're bringing us into spooky
Yes.
season. You know what I'm saying? The second we hit September, it is spooky season, right?
Yeah,
It
we
is
are a month
spooky
early.
season. And like honestly, spooky season lasts throughout all the way up until January, because it's always spooky after buying everybody gifts and all the holiday travel and shit, seeing your bills that you have to pay in January. That's spooky.
That's
it just
fucking
keeps
spooky.
fucking going, right?
Uh-huh.
Dude, that was
Eh?
good. That was so good, man.
Well, this week, we want to thank you all for all of our Patreons for listening, for hopping in. We want to let you know that we've got some stuff coming up. Next week, I will be heading to the beach, so we're recording 4 episodes in the span of a week. And I'll be heading to the beach and getting our first character for our Patreon recorded and then set up, hopefully in a week or 2. We'll have that video for you guys for our Patreon listeners. So if you want to see these videos, we'll set up a few different little clips for you on Instagram and TikTok, but we're going to keep that strictly for Patreon, so can't wait to do that. We are going to be going to Hopkinsville, Kentucky in 2 weeks to do a paranormal investigation with Beer, Booze, and Billiomen. Gil and I will be busy, to say the least, so we are excited to get into that, and we will still be getting those episodes. That's why we're doing 4 in a week.
Yes.
And so we appreciate all of you who have donated, all of you who've gotten on our Patreon, all of you who are wanting to see us. And if you haven't donated, it ends today. You won't be able to hear this before it ends, but you can hop onto our Patreon and you can get, if you join our first, I think it's our first $5 tier.
Any tier.
You can get access, any tier. You can get $1 movie night. you can get that tier and get access to seeing us live investigate a haunted house, paranormal in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, the Night House. So please join up and see me and Gil do some of the most ridiculous things we'll ever probably do in our life. So, thank you. Turn it over to Gil for any updates on his side.
Yes. Let me see here. Got some pretty awesome shit coming up with episodes. And I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna fucking say it. One of the OG Black Cat Report hosts, I believe at the time of this, is gonna be coming on the next week and the following week for a very, very special 2-part series, which hints were dropped about during this episode. Love if you tuned in. Would love if you watched. And it's gonna be pretty fucking awesome. And this, I think, Joey, I want to say, based off the reading and the research that I've been doing lately, this is gonna lead up to probably damn near close to a month of the evil side of UFOs, the evil side of investigations, the evil side of extraterrestrials, something we haven't necessarily focused on in terms of a theory, an approach, a perspective on things, but we're going to be digging in. And a lot of it, I'm going to be honest, a lot of it is going to be based off of revelations that have come out recently via Lou Elizondo's new book, Imminent. We were going to be covering it, but then literally, everybody and their mom did book reviews on it, and we're like, yeah, that's not us. We're not gonna fucking, no, fuck that bandwagon, you know. But we did take aspects of hints and things that he said during interviews, very keywords, and we've been expanding on it. And I want to say October is going to be a dark, spooky month. So, I'm looking forward to that. And I guess one very final last thing. September 28th at about 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central. And if you're on the West Coast, I don't know, 3 weeks ago on Tuesday or some shit, you can figure that out. There will be a very special episode of Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen live from the Night House. Joey, Kristen, Damien, and myself all in one room, all at the same time, taking calls, hanging out, and doing an episode before we launch, and we go offline for folks that haven't donated or joined Patrons. And you can also join Kristen's Patreon, that'll get you in too. For anybody that doesn't have access, you know, we'll be doing that for a little bit, and then we'll be hopping in to the actual investigation. So please, if you get a chance, join us. Shit's gonna be fun. Other than that, yeah. I got nothing, Joey. I got nothing.
All right. Well, let's end our episode with our favorite.
We love you, and bye.